So let's talk about where I practically went for the last week. So you guys know the very last video I made on my YouTube channel was me talking about Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I have to be honest with you guys, that's pretty much where I've been for this whole entire week. Instead of making videos like I should be doing and like a responsible adult I am, I've actually been playing a lot of Fire Emblem Three Houses. And let me tell you, I'm so addicted to Fire Emblem Three Houses. Fire Emblem Three Houses is definitely a very good game, and this is a game I think everybody should play. This game is a phenomenal game. As of right now, as it stands, this is definitely one of my favorite Nintendo Switch games at the very moment on the Nintendo Switch. So good, and I get why so many people are talking about this game. But anyway, let's actually talk about today's video, because in today's video, I kind of want to talk more about the Nintendo Switch revision, because I think I made a video talking about the Nintendo Switch revision, but I only made one video talking about the Nintendo Switch revision. So in this video, let's actually talk a little bit more about the Nintendo Switch revision. Am I going to buy the Nintendo Switch revision? Who is the Nintendo Switch revision for ultimately? Let's talk about the Nintendo Switch revision, since now the Nintendo Switch revision is pretty much out in the wild, and you can find the Nintendo Switch revision out in the wild. If you go to places like Walmart, Best Buy, Target, GameStop here in America, you can find the Nintendo Switch revision. So what is the Nintendo Switch revision? Well, first off, the Nintendo Switch revision is not a new type of console. It's not the Nintendo Switch Pro, so you're not actually getting really any new features with the Nintendo Switch revision. The only thing you're actually getting with the Nintendo Switch revision is actually more battery life. Yes, indeed, you are actually getting more battery life than the standard Nintendo Switch. You're actually getting more battery life than the Nintendo Switch Lite that is coming out in September. The portable only Nintendo Switch that is going to be released next month. It does actually have more battery life than that, so take that into consideration. But besides having much more battery life than something like the original Nintendo Switch model or the Nintendo Switch Lite model that is coming out, it does have more battery, and that's pretty much all that Nintendo Switch has. It doesn't have anything else. It does have a slightly better, efficient processor, but the processor inside the Nintendo Switch revision is going to be the same processor that's going to be used in the Nintendo Switch Lite, and it's actually the same processor already in the same Nintendo Switch that's currently on the market, that's been out since I think March of 2017. So you can see it's the same exact processor. Basically what Nintendo did with this processor alone, they pretty much took the normal Nintendo Switch processor and then they pretty much shrunken it down and made it much more efficient and things like that, so it runs cooler, it performs slightly better. But in terms of performance, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, it looks like games aren't really getting any better performance in games. If you're thinking games would play in like 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second, games getting better resolution in games. Unfortunately, it looks like that is not the case when it comes to the Nintendo Switch revision. And the sad thing about the Nintendo Switch revision is it's practically the same exact model. So when you use the Nintendo Switch revision, you won't even know you're using the Nintendo Switch revision unless you truly know you bought the Nintendo Switch revision. Now, the best way to look for the Nintendo Switch revision out in the wild is going to be for a brand new Nintendo Switch box. I know it's kind of confusing now that both models look exactly the same. If I was to give you the Nintendo Switch revision and a normal Nintendo Switch, you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. But the box is the biggest indicator on the Nintendo Switch revision. So if you're thinking about buying the Nintendo Switch revision, just know the new box I think is all red, whereas the old box wasn't all red. So just keep that in mind. Look for pretty much an all red box, and most retailers that you go to won't even classify it as a brand new Nintendo Switch. But I have heard reports if you do buy the new Switch revision from GameStop specifically, I do know if you go there, they do actually say on the receipt or in their system, they do actually classify it as like a Nintendo Switch V2 version 2, which Nintendo is not really classifying this as a brand new updated Nintendo Switch, even though it has better battery life than the Nintendo Switch that's currently on the market. Or the best way to get this Nintendo Switch, if you're still unsure, is probably go to GameStop, and some of the employees there might potentially know what you're talking about, since the system, like I said, does classify this new Nintendo Switch revision as the Nintendo Switch revision version 2, so you could go to GameStop and ask that, but just look for a red box and you should be good to go. So the question is, with the Nintendo Switch revision, how much more battery life are you actually getting out of a lot of your Nintendo Switch games? Well, it really depends on the type of Nintendo Switch games that you play on your Nintendo Switch, but I can confidently say you're getting about 40% more battery life, so games will last a significantly longer amount when you buy the Nintendo Switch revision. Is it worth it to go out and just strictly buy the Nintendo Switch revision for the battery life? Honestly, it depends on the person. I really thought about this hard and long, and I really gave this a good think about who should actually buy this Nintendo Switch revision. And honestly, if you ask me, it really just depends on what type of user you are. Honestly, if you're a user that only plays in the dock, of course, this really won't speak to you because you're not getting more performance in the dock. Games are going to look better, etc., etc. So I get why people who play in the dock only won't want to get this Nintendo Switch, since you're only getting benefits in undocked mode and handheld mode. And then for people who do play on the go, it will depend on how you play on the go. If you play on the go but you normally play in handheld mode, like in your house, in your apartment, or in the confines of a building, then you should be okay because you can't get to a wall charger all the time. But if you're taking your Nintendo Switch on things like airplanes, things like cars, car trips, and things like that, then I can see where the 40% more battery will really come in handy. And I really recommend maybe you go out and spend the extra cash for this new Nintendo Switch. And the good thing about this new Nintendo Switch revision, which I didn't even mention up to this point, is the fact that the new Nintendo Switch revision is only going to cost you $300. It's not like we're talking about a brand new Nintendo Switch. Even though it has more battery life, Nintendo didn't say, well, we're considering it a brand new model, so let's charge a little bit extra, which they could indeed done with this brand new Nintendo Switch. But no, you're going to be paying $300 whether you buy the old Nintendo Switch or whether you buy the new Nintendo Switch. It will only cost you $300. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to go out and buy this thing. So again, it really just does depend on what type of user you are. Should you buy this new Nintendo Switch, and should you not buy this new Nintendo Switch? So the question is, did I actually end up buying the new Nintendo Switch revision? Honestly, if you ask me and you know anything about me, you'll know I'm a person, unfortunately, that mostly plays my Nintendo Switch in the dock 99% of the time, or 90% of the time. Once in a while, I will get a feeling to take my Nintendo Switch out of the dock and play in handheld mode. But usually, to be honest with you guys, when I do play my Nintendo Switch in handheld mode, I'm mostly playing my Nintendo Switch in handheld mode around my house. And honestly, it doesn't make sense for me to get a brand new Nintendo Switch when I only play inside the house. And since the battery's not that bad to begin with the old model, 3 hours on AAA games, and then on indie games you get about 5 hours, it just does not make sense to me, since the wall outlet is right there in front of my face anyway. I can charge up, and then of course, like I said, I mostly play in the dock anyway, so of course I'm always on the wall. I'm always on a TV, so no need to worry about battery life there. So you can see I'm a person that really doesn't benefit from this. And also, if you're a person that's kind of on the edge about which Nintendo Switch should you buy, you do also have to realize when it comes to the original Nintendo Switch, you can always buy a battery bank or a battery case for your Nintendo Switch and extend the battery life of your Nintendo Switch. But somebody actually makes a good point about battery cases and battery chargers for the Nintendo Switch. You do have to realize, if you're a person that's going to be away from the wall for many hours and you go on a lot of trips, and in extreme cases you still may be better off buying the brand new Nintendo Switch revision. You have to take in consideration the 40% more battery life, which is actually significantly more than you would be getting on the regular Nintendo Switch. You take that into consideration, then you buy a battery bank or a power case for the Nintendo Switch revision. You're talking way more battery life with the brand new Nintendo Switch, with a battery case and a battery charger or a battery backup. So you can see that that's actually something to take in consideration when we're talking about the Nintendo Switch revision. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of all these different things that could be taken into consideration when it comes to the Nintendo Switch revision. And apparently, when it comes to the Nintendo Switch revision, they didn't really update the Joy-Cons. They really didn't update the kickstand on the back. They didn't update the plastic on the Nintendo Switch. They didn't really do anything to the Nintendo Switch besides redesign the processor to be a little bit more efficient, and also just make sure that you do get more battery life, because the Switch does have a slightly redesigned processor that's much more efficient than the original Nintendo Switch processor. One thing to take to take note about the Nintendo Switch revision. Apparently, from some users that actually use the Nintendo Switch revision, they actually said that in handheld mode, you don't actually hear the fans kick up all too much. Where, as you know, with some Nintendo Switch games, depending on which Nintendo Switch games you play, in handheld mode, you can really hear the fan kick on the original model. But apparently, with this redesigned, more efficient Tegra X1 processor, it's just more efficient overall to where you don't hear the fans kick on all too much. So if you're talking about longevity, or you're talking about build quality, or are you talking about something that'll last longer potentially, you may want to take into consideration this model as well, because in the long run, if you're really, I guess, OCD about your technology and you're worried about your technology lasting as possible, then you may want to go with this one as well too, depending. It just really just depends on how much you play in handheld mode. But I really just wanted to talk about the Nintendo Switch revision in this actual video, since I didn't talk about it all too much on my YouTube channel, and now that it's finally out on the market, you finally know if this Nintendo Switch revision is for you or not. And apparently also, one thing to take note before I head out of the video, which I did not even talk about in this video, is the fact that apparently from some slight testing of the new Nintendo Switch revision, you may actually get better performance when it comes to downloading games from the eShop. I say may because there's a lot of things to take in consideration, and you can't really go off a test because different people's internets, different times of day, how busy is the internet, yada yada yada. But apparently from a couple of different tests on the internet, they are saying that if you download a lot of digital games on your Nintendo Switch, that you may actually be able to download games slightly faster. When I mean slightly faster, I don't mean miles faster, I mean slightly faster. You may save a minute here, you may save 50 seconds here, so it's probably not worth it to buy the new Nintendo Switch revision just to get slightly better performance when it comes to downloading games or speeds in general. I also wonder with the new Nintendo Switch revision if they actually fixed the Wi-Fi chip in the Nintendo Switch. You guys may remember back in March of 2017 when the Nintendo Switch first came out, a lot of people were actually complaining about how the Nintendo Switch had bad Wi-Fi, and I can agree to that. A lot of times my Nintendo Switch still gets bad Wi-Fi. I never get full bars, and it's actually funny. I'm usually really close to my router, and it's hilarious how bad the Wi-Fi is. You would think you'd get full bars of Wi-Fi, but in my case, you don't get full bars. Is that a big reason to buy the new Nintendo Switch? No, it's not a new reason to buy the Nintendo Switch, and who knows if they actually did fix that feature or not. But there you go. Now you guys know a lot more about the Nintendo Switch revision. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.